There's one question that probably every 20 to 30 year old from a small town has asked themselves at least once in their life, and it's, should I move from my small town to a bigger town for more opportunities and a better way of life? Well, recently I did just this, moving from small town Yorkshire in England all the way to Hamilton, Ontario in Canada, and I wanted to share my two penneth of my experience. So let's get into it. It's so cool up here. This drops down the steepest hill ever, and millions and gazillions of years ago this used to be one big glacier across Lake Ontario before the world started warming up and stuff. Anyway, let's get into this video. In case you're new here and this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, firstly subscribe, but also I used to work on cruise ships, and recently I moved here to Hamilton, Ontario to find more opportunities. I wanted to become an audio engineer and work in a recording studio, and I'm doing exactly that now. I guess if you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, should I move from my hometown to start afresh? Should you move towns from a small town to a bigger town to get more opportunities? Now, I think there's so many things to consider when you're doing this. It depends where you are in life, what kind of commitments you have, of course. If you're young, free and single, then you're probably considering moving. I've watched loads of videos about this. When you're making a decision like that about moving, back in the UK, I was at my parents' place and I've moved here. I took a big chance, but 100% the number one thing to do is your research. You know, if you're going to move somewhere, then you probably need to do a good few months researching, finding out what opportunities are there, what's the culture like, what's the weather like, is a big thing here in Canada. And I think research is probably the key thing. These big cities like Nashville, London, Los Angeles, the streets are not always painted with gold. I've had friends that have moved from smaller towns in the US to move to Nashville, and I think there's a big thing at the minute. I don't live in Nashville, so I don't know, but from some people's experience of it, the problem is if you move to a big city, the competition is just massive out there. There is some big players in these big cities, you know. So the question is, do you become a big fish in a smaller town, or do you become a smaller fish in a big town? Or do you work your ass off and become a big fish in a big town? For instance, the big city in the UK, of course, everybody moves to London. Millions and millions of people that live there. It's so expensive to live there. So a lot of people are working two jobs to try and fulfill the dream, and then realise that why did they move to London? Just to try and pay for an overpriced house or an overpriced flat somewhere. And I think that's pretty similar here in Toronto. You know, I'm in Hamilton. The nearest big city is Toronto, of course, and Toronto's expensive, very, very expensive. Do your research, housing, what's the job market like? Yeah, that's all good things to think about. I myself decided to move here to Hamilton. A lot of people ask, Danny, why have you moved to Hamilton? Because it's got a weird reputation. I weighed it up and I thought exactly the way I think about the UK, I guess. Instead of moving to London, where everybody moves, again, I did my research and looked into places further afield that might offer something of that kind of big fish in a smaller town vibe. And Hamilton seemed to fit that. Hamilton's a great in-between of small town and city. And yeah, in terms of affordability, it's way more affordable to live in Hamilton than it is in Toronto. And also you get to escape that grind of city living here. And that was all done through research, essentially. So yeah, do your research, guys, is the thing. And in terms of moving to another town for music, like I did, I think everything is different, of course. If you live very close to Nashville, and when I say very close, within like, I don't know, 50 miles of Nashville, then maybe that's the thing for you to do, because your childhood home is near Nashville, of course. So maybe that's a more realistic thing. I think you should assess what skills you have and what you can offer to these places. And it all comes back to when you get to these new towns, you have to get out and network and just try and get out there and do your best to get to know people, find the opportunities. My last video was all about me coming here in the first place, and a load of people have messaged me or commented and said, how do you get a job? What can I expect? And you know, there's job fairs and everything, but depending on what you want to do, you have to go out there and find the jobs yourself. You have to work to network, find that path that you want to go down, and don't just follow even videos like this. Don't follow one bad video where somebody's had a bad experience. Watch videos and find out the best information that you can. And it's a big thing even for myself. It's tough to get out there and try and be the confident person in the room and do that networking, you know. It's scary when you're in a town, you don't know anybody, and you've got to go up to people and say, hey, do you want to be my friend? Do you want to work with me, sort of thing? And they don't know you, because some people look at you gone out like you're a total crazy person. But other people, you never know when you're going to fill that gap for somebody where they're just looking for the right person at the right time. And you would never know that unless you get out there and meet people. Me, myself, I'm trying to get better at that, trying to find places where you can get out and meet people who've got the same interests, they're looking to do the same things in work. And yet even Hamilton's being smaller than Toronto, it's still a big enough city where there's lots going off, and you just got to find those opportunities. Anyway, I didn't want to make this a super long video. I just wanted to talk about it because, again, this is a question I asked myself so much before I came here to Hamilton. And for me, so far, fingers crossed, it's working out, you know. And again, it is what you make it, guys. That's the biggest thing I can say from this. It is what you make it. So the key takeaways, I guess, are do your research. That is the number one thing I will say. Do your research. Research what's out there. Could you do better being that bigger fish in the small town? Have you got more to offer as a musician, as a producer, as a videographer, as anything in a smaller town with maybe less opportunity, but then again more opportunity? Because if that small town doesn't have many skilled people in terms of videography, music, you could be the one that just fits in right and perfect at the right time for that town. So yeah, I think that's the key takeaway from this, and I hope this video helps. So yeah, if you're watching one of my videos for the first time, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe. I do videos all about traveling, all about music, and all about my moving here to Canada very recently, and I hope it helps somebody out, gives somebody some reassurance that it's not all disaster stories out there. Be sure to subscribe, and I'm sure I'll see you on the next video.